Thank you. Making it as an entrepreneur. What does that mean to you? For many of us, names like Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, maybe Henry Ford come to mind. You know, big ideas that change the world, create massive value for their shareholders. Or perhaps it's a lifestyle business. You know, creating something that allows you to live life on your own terms, that steady income, break away from the normal 9 to 5. Think of a Tim Ferriss type character sitting on a beach, running his business from a laptop. Well, the reality is entrepreneurship is really a broad spectrum. And we typically just speak about the startup and then we celebrate the success. But the reality is there's so much more in between. Today I'm here to talk with you, share with you a few ideas about what it takes to make that transition from a startup to a second stage company. Now you may ask, what's a second stage company? Well, the Edward Lowe Foundation, which is a group that specializes in helping second stage companies, defines it as businesses with 10 to 99 employees and $1 million all the way up to $50 million in revenue. It's a pretty big group of businesses, wouldn't you agree? So for me, I'm right in the middle of this. Beck Partners is growing. We're experiencing a lot of success, but we haven't figured it out. I don't know all the secrets. I don't know exactly what it takes to become a mature company. But I've been on this road now for about 4 years, and I've learned a few things that I think are valuable. And hopefully we have plenty of time for questions and answers so we can talk about different things. And I'm sure there's some experts out here that can help as well. So 4 years ago, we formed Beck Partners. I was working at the predecessor company, like Rocky said, Beck Property Company. We were coming out of the recession. We were starting to experience some success again. But I knew that I wanted to create something with value. And I knew I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. So I had these ideas. I didn't know exactly what to do with them. And I was fortunate enough to meet my partners, Reed Rushing and Christine Rushing, and they had similar ideas. You see, they were owning and operating McGraw Insurance. So we came together, we formed Beck Partners, and things are going pretty good. We've been on the Inc. 5000 list this past year. We've made the Florida Trend Best Companies to work for 2 years in a row. And we actually were named Employer of the Year at EntreCon. And while I bring that up, I wanted to thank Rachael Gillette. She's been a fantastic resource and friend for our business. And she was the one who asked me to speak today, and I really appreciate her asking me to do that. So for you, which is it? What do you want to be? Big growth company? Lifestyle business? Well, whatever it is, I've found there's a few things you must do. First one, after you've survived that startup phase, is to shift your mindset as a leader from working in the startup to the second stage. You have to shift your mindset to think bigger. The second thing you must do is have great processes. Nail your business's processes. Have to be working great. And then finally, you got to get your money right. Has anybody seen Grant Cardone? He says you got to get your money right. Got to have the capital to make it all go. Anybody here familiar with Four Rivers Barbecue? I know Stephen is. We don't have one in Pensacola yet, but I think it's the best barbecue in the state of Florida. And a really unique story about the company and their founder, John Rivers. So John was a successful healthcare CEO. He ran $1 billion healthcare company. He retired early, and he always had a passion for Texas brisket. So with all of his free time on his hand, he started cooking a lot more brisket. And he'd cook it at his church. And they had a ministry called a barbecue ministry, and it was great, and everybody loved it. And finally, someone said, John, you got to open a restaurant. This is unbelievable. So he did that. That was less than a decade ago. Today, there's 14 Four Rivers barbecues. So I tell you the story because it's unique. Not many barbecue chefs, pit masters, can go from one restaurant to 14 in such a short period of time. What does John know that so many don't? Well, I believe it's because of John's experience working in the healthcare industry at a large company. What's known at large mature companies is that CEOs have to focus on the business, the entire enterprise. They have to think beyond their craft. What I see so many entrepreneurs doing as they grow is still think about what they do to get there, whether it's cooking barbecue or selling real estate. Further explain this point, Jeff Bezos had an interview recently, and he talks about his typical day. All right? His typical day includes 8 hours of sleep. Pretty nice, right? It includes, these are his words, puttering around the house for a while. No meetings before 10 a.m. And if it's a good day, 3 decisions. 3 well-made decisions. And I know, you're thinking, Justin, of course, he's the richest man in the world. He just announced a new headquarters with 25,000 jobs coming to New York and all that. He's got plenty of people to handle all that for him, but my issues are different. And you're right, but what I thought was really interesting about the interview is the fact that Bezos asked his executives that work for him to operate the same way. Now, if you'll think back a few years, and if you keep up with financial news, you know that for the longest time, Amazon didn't turn a profit. Nobody knew where Bezos was spending all that money, what he was doing. Well, I think it's pretty clear now, right? Bezos had it figured out that he was thinking about 10 years or 20 years down the road instead of quarterly earnings reports. We would all be well served to take that sort of view in our business. Now, the next thing that I want to share with you is, I've said before, these are struggles that I've had. This is specifically something that I've worked on that I keep struggling with. I'm good at selling real estate. I'm not great, but I'm pretty good at it. And so when we're having these conversations about growing a business and we're trying to find the right talent, whatever it is, it's hard. And so I like to go back to doing what I'm used to doing, putting real estate deals together. This past year we made the decision to hire a full-time sales manager. It was a great decision, but it was a hard one because it meant me giving up some control. We're only a year into it, but I can already see my time being freed up to focus on more bigger pictures. Do we have any Alabama football fans out there? Don't worry. I can't stand Alabama. I'm sorry. Can't stand it. But you can't deny it, right? No matter who you like, you can't deny the fact that Alabama is unbelievable right now, and Nick Saban's unbelievable. If you ask Nick Saban why he's so successful, he has a clear answer. He knows exactly. He calls it the process. He has not a very clever name for it, but he has a process. And what does that mean at Alabama? That means every coach, every player, all the way down to the 4th string right tackle knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing on every play. They know what's happening in the weight room. They've even got barcodes at their cafeteria that scan, the players scan. So if they've eaten too much, the cafeteria lady will say, no, you can't have any more chicken. Perfect processes. If it's good enough for a football team, isn't it good enough for your life's work? There's 3 processes you must get right, I believe, in order to thrive in this world, in the second stage. The first one is an operating system for your business. You know, I've talked about shifting your mindset, right? What does that look like? Who's holding you accountable as a leader? You need some sort of system as a leader to hold you accountable and make sure you're working on your business. For us at Beck Partners, we utilize something called Traction. Maggie's there. Maggie's on our leadership team. She's at our Traction meeting every week. There's a great book by Gino Wickman called Traction. And it lays out an operating system to run in your business. It's about accountability. It's about getting things done. It's about not meeting any more than you have to meet. But there's other ways too. A board of directors is a great thing, holding you accountable as a leader. You must have an operating system to run your business. There's another company, actually, they just won an award, right, at the luncheon, IMS. Is Bill here? Bill's not here. Bill and his team at IMS use Traction as well. I don't think he minds me sharing that. He encouraged me to do the same thing, and they've experienced unbelievable growth because of it. Next process that's incredibly important is sales process. Some of you out there are probably saying you're not in the sales business. We had some CPAs, some attorneys, maybe nonprofits saying we're not in sales. But I believe that everybody's in sales. And if you're in sales, it's incredibly beneficial for everybody in the organization to know what your process is for communicating your solution to a client. Even accounting, even HR needs to know. So what do you get out of a sales process? Well, you get integration among the team. Is anybody in a sales organization where you're like, those sales guys, they just do whatever they want to do. I have no idea what they're up to. No? I know that happens sometimes in our office. But not typically. So with a great sales process, accounting, HR, they know what's being communicated out there in the field. Better conversion rates are also a byproduct of a great sales process. So if everybody's singing off the same sheet of music, we can identify issues and we can work on them and solve them faster. If there's a comment or pushback from a client about something, it's probably going to be similar to what another person's experiencing. So we can solve those issues faster. And then finally, if you're in the growth mode, you're going to be hiring, hopefully, new salespeople. You want to ramp them up quicker. I hear that all the time. I'd love to hire new people. I'd love to hire new sales folks, but it just takes so long to train them. Well, what does your process look like? Who's training them? What are they being trained? Does it really have to be that slow? We work all the time at our company at speeding up that process. And one of my favorite companies to talk about when it comes to sales processes is Walker & Dunlap. Some of you may be familiar with Walker & Dunlap, but if you're not, they're a mortgage finance, commercial real estate finance company. And they're a third generation company. Willie Walker's their CEO, and when he took over as CEO, it was right before the recession. And he likes to say he was too small to fail. They only had one office, 20 or 30 people. So they were basically unaffected by the recession. And so afterwards, after the recession hits, all these big banks are failing, and Willie's gobbling up talent left and right. He's buying companies. So all of a sudden he looks back in 2 or 3 years, he's got like 300 people, which is like, wow, that's awesome, right? He's got 300 people that are all doing different things. And he's pulling his hair out because he doesn't know what this guy's saying. He doesn't know what that guy's saying. He's getting complaints left and right. Everybody's got their own style, all that. So Willie Walker & Dunlap, they implemented a sales process. And they went from 200, 300 employees. Now they're up over at 700. And if you talk to somebody in New Orleans at Walker & Dunlap, it sounds very similar to the folks you talk to in New York. accent is just a little different. But it sounds very similar. So a sales process. Do you believe it's easy to get hired at Google or Apple? Maybe McKinsey, if you're familiar with that consulting company. Those firms are notorious for being difficult to get hired at. And why do you think that is? They're no doubt great companies. No doubt. But it's because their hiring process is so well done. It is a science at those companies. For growing businesses, hiring is the most important thing you can do. Hiring right is so critical. Having a great hiring process can speed up that growth, and it can standardize your talent pool. A few things that we do differently at Beck Partners, I believe. One is we do a peer interview process. And I'll stop and say, I'm not an expert at hiring, but man, my partner, Christine Rushing, is world class at it. I truly believe that, and I'll tell anybody that. In fact, she teaches a class Studer Community Institute puts on. It's usually in the spring. If you get a chance, go to it, Christine Rushing's hiring processes. So we do peer interviews. We also do behavioral assessments with a lot of help with Carol Carlin, who's here today. So we've benchmarked each job. We don't hire on who we like and who's friends with who, and hey, they interviewed really well. Those are great things, fantastic. But we benchmark each job so we know what behaviors we're looking for. We've had tremendous success hiring folks that don't have a lot of experience, frankly. We've got an architect selling real estate for me right now. He's doing great. Got a guy who's a commodities trader, was in the Navy. No real estate experience, is just doing unbelievable. It's because of the behavioral assessment. A great hiring process is imperative. And we can talk about hiring process. It's a very in-depth conversation. I hope if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But again, too, Christine does a great job. So, Founders Brewing Company, Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's a great company. And Founders, the guys who started that, they quit their jobs. They quit their 9-to-5 jobs, and they took out some loans. And they started brewing beer, feeling pretty good about themselves, but they were competing against all these other breweries. It's 20 years ago now. Doing the same old beers that everybody else is doing because that's what they thought they needed to do to compete. Well, on the verge of bankruptcy after several years of flat growth, they said, to hell with it. If we're going to go out, let's go out brewing what makes us excited. Let's do what we like. So they did this coffee milk stout. I don't know if anybody's had this. I'm not that type of beer drinker, but not my thing. But apparently it's awesome. And if you love coffee milk stouts, Founders is your beer. It's the best. So they won some awards, right? And hey, we're on to something here, but they didn't have any money. They had blown it competing in a very, very competitive world. So in Grand Rapids, Michigan, they went to a high net worth investor and said, we need help. Here's our story. Here's what we're trying to do, and we're having some success. So they ended up selling 25% of the company for the funds needed for a new brewery and new marketing and ramping up. Founders is doing unbelievable now. They've got several beers and they're all very unique and they're doing it their way. But they had to get their capital right in order to do that. So you started as a startup and now you got to this point and you have to make some really important decisions. Whether you go down the path like Founders at the verge of bankruptcy, and their story's great, but it didn't have to be that way. With proper planning, you can be prepared for that growth. You can be ready for it. There's several different sources that you can go after. The first is friends and family. If you've been a startup, you've probably gone down that path before. There's high net worth investors like founders did. We're really fortunate in this community. This community is totally different than it was 10 years ago. Trust me, I was here, and the idea that there are individuals that would invest in businesses was crazy. Maybe one or two, it seemed like. But they're around now. All you gotta do is ask. We've got another company that's a baby, Bayfront Capital. We've only been around for a couple of years. And we invest in real estate, my partner Stacy and I. And we've done 10 or so transactions. And we've had some success. We raise capital from friends and family and high net worth investors. And we go and buy real estate projects. Our first deal was really hard. It was awkward trying to ask somebody to invest in your deal. But now on the 10th deal, 12th deal, it's a lot easier. Think about that from startup stage to a second stage. Hopefully you're profitable now. Hopefully you've got a product, service that you're actually selling successfully. It should be a lot easier. There's banks, credit unions, like Beach Community Bank, that are interested in your business, in growing your business. They're there to lend you money if you want to go down that road. A few pieces of advice, whether it's friends and family, high net worth investors, or banks, is you need to get your financial house in order. It blows my mind when I meet with companies, and through leasing process, we have to look at financials. They don't have everything together. They don't have their tax returns, their P&Ls, financial statements together, numbers in the wrong spot. Being prepared, having a package, and having a story of what you're wanting to do goes a long way. You also need to ask for the money before you need it. It's much easier. I've done this to Steve and Lobeck a couple of times. We're like, I need a loan. Like, I'm trying to close on this thing. I need it next week. That doesn't work, right? Steve's like, it's too much. You got to get an extension. So ask for it before you need it. It's really important. So we talked about shifting that mindset, right? Being prepared for that growth. We talked about implementing great processes, right? And we talked about the capital that makes it all go. But what I've noticed, maybe more so than anything else, is there's one thing that can derail all of it. I've been in the real estate world for 13 years now. And at Beck Partners, we have this great opportunity to sit down with companies and learn about their business and see how we can help them from the real estate side, see how we can help them from the insurance side. And we get to sit down and I talk with these owners, and I get really excited, hearing about their plans and what they want to do. It's multiple locations, bigger office. And so we go down that path and we help them find that solution. And as we're continuing that relationship, and we're continuing to talk with them, whether it's about insurance or property management, we follow up. The great businesses continue to strive. And maybe it doesn't look like anything that amazing from the outside, but they're always learning. They're always trying something new. Maybe it's as simple as, I think we're going to do a new accounting system this year. I think I found something really, really great. Or new service we're going to roll out. I'm really excited about it, Justin. Or I think we're going to try Jacksonville. Those are great conversations to have. And whether those companies choose to become the biggest company in the world or stay small and just do a great job in their community, that they're still pushing, that their leadership is still curious. But there's companies that I meet with that aren't that way. And it derails their success every time. Sometimes it takes different forms. I think sometimes the success becomes the issue. But whatever it is, it's the idea that they've become complacent. So I ask you today, no matter what you do with your business, stay interested, keep searching, keep asking. This community has so many great people around it, so many great resources that can help you. EntreCon is just one example. This world of entrepreneurship is a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. I honestly think of it sometimes as a work of art. And I know that may sound silly, but it's something you get to create. It's your own creation if you're an entrepreneur. And if you stop, it's over. But if you keep pushing and you keep hungry, you'll be successful. So I really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And if anybody has any questions, happy to answer them.